So leadership is about being able to lead yourself first. Once you can lead yourself first, then you can lead a team, right? Because it takes great knowing and awareness of yourself to know like what are some of the blind spots or some of the things that can get you tripped up in order for you to be able to lead your team. So if you're coming from a belief that I can do this better myself, then you're going to have this level of control, this level of manipulation. It may trickle down in the form of micromanagement, things like that, right? So it's like really being true to who you are, knowing what your triggers are, being so aware that you can see it, and then be able to shift as need be.
Good morning and welcome back to the Coachful Coaching Leadership Podcast. Today, I'm here with Stephanie Stoddart. Stephanie, good morning.
Good morning to you, David. I love that we're in sync today. So green and
It's
green.
Green Day. Yeah, it's Green Day.
So this is a perfect day, and thank you for inviting me here today to speak to your audience.
Yes, thank you. And hey, folks, if you can't see what's going on and you're just listening here, somehow we coordinated with green today. So today's a Green Day, Stephanie. I think great minds think alike. Is that what they say?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're on the same wavelength.
We are on the same wavelength, so this is going to be awesome. Hey, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but I am on your LinkedIn page, and I can't skip this banner. It says, helping dentists work less, earn more, and live fully. So I should actually address you by your full title, Dr. Stephanie Stoddart.
Okay, thank you.
MBA. What are you a doctor of, and what do you do, Stephanie?
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Dr. Stephanie Stoddart. I am a dentist by day, a mom all the time, and a coach and consultant to my fellow healthcare providers, dentists particularly, allowing them and inspiring them, empowering them to work less, earn more, and live more fully. So that came about a bit through my journey, which we'll, unpack and unfold here as we speak. But I just had this feeling and this knowing that we do need more people being who they're called to be, especially right now in healthcare. And I just felt that that's what I wanted to provide to my fellow colleagues. So
Yeah. Yeah, you're talking about healthcare. It's certainly shed in the last few years, especially during the pandemic. I think it really shed light on the amount of work healthcare providers and frontline workers are providing to our society, and what happens when the whole world's in a lockdown with a pandemic. I've had many friends too who were affected. Some friends who actually quit as well, and I don't blame them. By the way, it's nuts, and even to this day. But I guess, what motivated you to go from full-time dentist, and you are still a practicing dentist, as I understand. Yeah, you still practice, but moving on to this, this type of coaching, helping dentists, be more fulfilled. Like, I'm just curious what, made you want to make that transition.
So good thing you said that too. So COVID. Yeah, COVID.
The before.
It's actually before. So it's COVID was like the great divide for me. But before that, when I became a mom, so I became a mom in 2016, my first child. And, I am the primary breadwinner for my family. Mm-hmm. And it broke my heart to leave my child at home with my husband. And even though he's super capable of taking care of our kids, it was just that rift between like, oh my gosh, I spent all this time nurturing this baby inside of me. I popped him out, not really popped, but when I popped him out, and then, he's at home with my dad, with his dad, and I'm at work helping people and doing the things. And I had that rift. It was just like, oh my gosh, like I have to find another way. Like I can't just do that. And I did for such a long time. And it made me resentful. And then even though I would be like, oh yeah, I'm providing for my family and I'm helping in this way and all the things, it was just too much. And when the pandemic came about, I was like, okay, fine. I get to do something about this for real. Like there's no more like, oh, I want to do this or I want to do that. It's, I have decided and this is a decision I'm going to make. And then as soon as I did that, I got into my MBA program and the doors opened for me. So, the real thing behind that is I know there are so many more moms going into dentistry, so many more females going into dentistry.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone like me, if this could happen to someone like me, there are others who are wanting to forge a new path within this field that we have. And it starts by making a decision and really like showing the way that it can be done. So yeah.
So talk to us about how you actually help. It sounds like working moms is one of your targets. Like, but who do you help and how do you help them?
So working moms are high on my list, of course, because I am a working mom, and I help them to change their mindset. And I know mindset is like, what? But, it is really like changing their perspective on the way that they've been viewing things that have been happening to them or for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it always starts there for me. When we dial back some of the things that have been happening, it always comes back to the way that we've been thinking about things. So really just presenting it in such a way that they're able to see that, oh, wow, I do have choice here. And when you do have choice, you have all the power. So really just allowing them to tap back into the power of who they are.
The power of choice.
Yep.
That's been brought up quite a few times on this podcast, where it's almost like this reframing in your own mind that you actually have power to make choices and how you see things and how you do things and how you view a situation. I guess what's your take on that, and how do you help when you say it's about how you think about things? It's about your power of choice here. What do you do here with folks, especially working moms, dentists, fellow healthcare practitioners? Like, how do you help them?
So a lot of the things that we see, or the way that we see things, it's not the whole truth. As sad as it is, or as true as it feels as it is, it's not the entire truth. So a lot of things are happening beyond the way we can see it, right? So, say for example, a fact is a fact. Like, okay, it's sunny today. You can go to court and dispute that. And then a thought is your interpretation of that. So it's really like getting to the core of being able to distinguish between what is factual, what can be proved in a court of law, and then just seeing that the way that we're interpreting and having a perspective on it.
So what are some of those thoughts?
So I thought, like, a really predominant thought within dentistry is I have to work hard to make more money. Right? And is that really true? No.
I guess, I mean, if I was to get factual, the more you can bill, the more money you make, right? Some people might say that.
Yeah,
but
some people might say that too.
That's a belief, right?
Yeah.
But I guess what's enough in that case?
Your own definition of what enough is, right? So I have to work hard to make X amount of money, right? And then you're like, you keep going with that same belief, and somehow it's running the way that you've been programmed for such a long time. So, and that's the thing. It's like just bringing more awareness to or thoughts that we just download and just make it ours without even questioning what is actually truth for us or for a particular situation. So
I guess what do you think drives people towards that thought pattern, right? And I see that thought pattern in a lot of, especially high achieving individuals, right? Like yourself, like you become a dentist through lots of years of school. You have to have good marks. You have to, et cetera, right? And I'm very fortunate to work alongside people. I work in the tech industry. I've been very fortunate to work alongside people who are, multiple patent holders, PhDs, like just super smart people I have no business being around. But there is a predominant theme of like, I'm never good enough. I need to work harder. Oh, I messed up there. I'm not good enough. I'm clearly not good enough here. I guess, what's your take on it? I mean, I observed that, but why do you think, especially like high achievers, people who are doing well on the outside, are just so nasty to themselves inside?
I think it's because we haven't been given like the mechanisms to to really like get in touch with ourselves. I think, everything that's happened is actually between our ears. So like you said, we have some nasty ways of speaking to ourselves. And once we recognize the ways in which we're speaking to ourselves, I think you're like, wow, I actually said that to myself. I wouldn't say that to my mom or my son. Like, why is it that I'm treating myself this way? So one is awareness, but also being able to point it out. I think once you point it out, then you have to make a decision. Am I going to continue speaking to myself in this way, or am I going to choose to speak to myself differently? Right. And I think a lot of that stems back to possibly the way that we were raised. It's just the soup that's around us. I'm like, okay, wow.
Yeah.
You hear it, you're just like, okay, you could see at the core that's probably the way in which we were raised, that we had to do more to get more. But it's a new world out there right now in which that's not actually true. And you can know it's not true because someone who's doing what's in alignment for them, that may not seem as if they went through, years of training, years of schooling, and they can be doing better because they're happier. Right. So then how can we like see that as an example and then question the things that we've been believing for such a long time? Right. Because then it's like, well, you don't have to do more to make more. You can actually do less and make more.
So how do you do that? Like, how do you do less but make more?
So that boils down to having systems in place that uses like the leverage of your team and your skill set to get you to the level that you want. But it also starts with also knowing what's the goal for your office and the goal for yourselves, and going back and like reverse engineering that way in such a way that you're like, okay, fine, this is what I can do. So for myself, and I put it to the test for myself, obviously. So I was working 4 days a week, doing a certain amount of money. I was like, okay, I want to make, $5,000 this week. And then it's like, okay, fine. How can I make that same amount of money doing less days? So it's like you get more streamlined. You see the ways in which you were less efficient, like you were wasting time talking about people at the water cooler when you could have been using that time to do something else, right? So it's like really creating this awareness of where you are, and then really like putting your brain to work for you in the ways that will best serve you.
Sounds like it's helping, like, someone like myself, like more efficiency in the day. And here's how I might relate to that is that before kids, you go to work and la-di-da, you spend more time on this project making pixels look nice on the screen. And, that's my job. And, maybe go to lunch, talk to folks. After I had kids and I had responsibilities to pick them up and feed them, bathe them. My core hours at work were extremely efficient, involved not much socializing. And it's not like I didn't socialize, right? But I was able to say, okay, I got to get more done in 6 hours than the average human being. How do I do that?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, here we go. And it was just a lot of, don't waste your time.
Yeah.
And the other thing I found was delegating things, even as an individual contributor. Like I always thought, and I wonder if you see this, is like, yeah, I could do it all myself. And I just realized, like, actually, there's a lot of people out there who could help me, who are part of my team. I guess what you say, it's how you were raised. A lot of this, like, a lot of these beliefs about, doing more in order to earn a certain amount of money. I guess, are you able to share like how you were raised and what made you think that way?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Jamaica. I don't think you know that. Actually, I do need to update my LinkedIn to reflect that. So I'm originally from Jamaica, which is a small island within the Caribbean. And, one would consider my country to be a third world country. So it doesn't have access to all the resources that we have here in either the US or Canada. And it was that mentality that you had to get good grades. You had to be top of your class. You have to be, the best in everything to get to the next level. And of course, that ran my story for my whole life, because I got great grades and I did everything. I came to the US, I got into school, I got into all the top schools, yada, 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 right? And it was just this cycle of keeping doing. And it came crashing when my second child, my son, at that time, he was about 2.5, 3. And I came home and I was rushing home from work, stuffing my face, getting all the things done. And he was just like, Mom, it is kind of like, it doesn't make sense. Like, you're home late every single day. You're missing bedtime with us, right? And for what? Like, you say that family is important to you, but somehow your calendar does not reflect that. And he didn't say it in so many words, but the way that he said it, like, it really just put a knife in my heart that,
Oh,
you
geez.
know,
Yeah.
yeah. So the first child, I had that, mom guilt thing. The second child is like, well, you're still pretty guilty because you're not doing anything about it. And it's like, he challenged me to put my walk and my talk for them to be in alignment. And for him to see that at such a young age meant that, wow, he saw like the discrepancies, right? But also like he prioritized, just being able to get to know me at the core, which is what you want, right? You want to develop healthy relationships with your kids and family, all the things from such a good age. And that's not to say I didn't have that with my own family, but he was just craving more of me. And it just made me see that, while I'm still serving my patients with the highest level of care, I wasn't serving my family in the best way possible. Like, I wasn't happy, right? Because I was missing out on them. And then, how can I feed all those areas of my soul, like all areas of, work, family, and still having fun and not feel as if I'm missing out on any of those areas. So that's where it came down for me to be like, okay, I get to prioritize my time, and how can I do that? Right.
Yeah. So I'm curious, how do you prioritize your time now? Oh,
You're
giggling.
Something that you said earlier as well too, that I didn't touch on too,
Oh, please.
is
Yeah.
like leaning into support. I think as leaders, sometimes we think that we have to do it all and to get everything right. So,
Yeah.
part of that concept of working less and making more is also leaning into the support system that you have as a team. And at home, team could look like, your kids, your person who comes to clean your house, whatever, your partner, right? And just being able to ask for the things that you need. And I think a lot of times as high achievers, we don't ask for what we need. We feel like we have to do it all by ourselves. And, we get that 100%, or we get that high mark, or we get that glory of, I did it, right? That satisfaction that comes from that. But, when we do that, we lead down the road of burnout. And that's what happened in my case, and the case for many of my clients, because they've been taking on too many things for themselves. So to get back to your question too, the support systems that I have at home. So this year we made the decision to invest in an au pair. So she helps with the kids, and we have 3 kids. So that was definitely needed. And then things like, outsourcing cleaning. Like, do I want to spend my time cleaning my bathroom? I love cleaning it, but that's not a high use of my time, given the amount of time that I have. I'd rather spend that time spending it with my kids, making new memories, than doing that. It has to get done somewhere or the other, but being able to lean into that. And the same thing with your team. Like, I've seen sometimes within the dental setting, like a doctor will have an assistant that can do some of the tasks. So making a temporary crown, or, removing cement from something, and they'll spend their time doing that because either one, they think they can do it better, or two, they haven't gotten used to being able to lean into support. So that's a huge part of the coaching as well too, just recognizing that support is an essential part of life. We are designed for community and to do things together, not just by ourselves.
Yeah. I was reading this article recently about how founders of companies have difficult time letting go of their baby.
Yeah.
And it's, there's an emotional component to it because it is their baby and they don't want to see it go. But it's also the belief like, hey, no one knows how to do this better than me as well. And I think that's where, like, part of the theme of this podcast too is coaching people, or mentoring, if you want to use that word too, is if you want to delegate someone and you want to teach them how to, if you want to be able to delegate to someone and trust them, you got to teach them too. You got to spend the time teaching someone, like in your world, like, how do you make this crown? I could do it very well. No one else can do it better. It's like, well, why are the people around you not able to do it just as well as you? or better.
Yeah.
And you got to question yourself at that point as a leader of a practice or a leader of an organization. Like, why is that? And, it's redefining what it means to be a business owner. Like, part of your job is not just to run the business, in my opinion. You got to make others around you better so that they can actually help you run the business. I guess, like, if I can get back to one point, like you're talking about, how you're raised, and there's a lot of similarities there between us, but also like, hey, you got to do well in school, and the school system as well, like really enforces, individual work.
Yeah.
Like Stephanie did an A+ on this. Excellent. You get into med school, you get into dental school, you become a lawyer, whatever you want to do. And it's almost like you get into the workforce, so you have to unlearn a lot of those habits. I don't know if you found that. I a lot of habits where, you achieve things on your own. Now, in order to really excel, I find you have to work with others and be able to work with others. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Like, did you have to unlearn a lot of those habits from before, and, the school habits and such?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, most certainly. It's interesting that you said the belief that I can do it better than others, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that holds us back from more potential, because that's not true. Kind of the same thing that you said too, like just be able to, I like to say, like, leadership is also about being able to influence, right? So it's not about control. And I think that's the illusion that we've had for such a long time, that leadership is about control. Like, yes, I am CEO, I am founder, blah, 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 all the titles, right? But it's also being able to influence your team around you. So for me, leadership is more about influence than it is about control or title. And it's a way of being that just comes from who you are at the core. And it does take some unwinding, on some unlearning, some detangling, because those roots and those beliefs are deep. They're collective within our society. And we know that because you've had some of those similar beliefs, right? Like you were raised probably a similar way. And it's just really questioning everything. It's like so much more freeing, and this level of curiosity that we have when we just question everything, because most of our beliefs are not true. And yeah, they're not. And then who do we get to be to redefine what that means for you? So like I said, leadership means, influence. And once you realize that you do have that level of influence, it kind of compels you to raise up the rest of your team, right? It's like, if I want to be at this level and I want to see everyone else ascend to that level as well too, who do I get to be to encourage them or inspire them to do the same? And it starts by letting go. Yeah.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Letting go in order to move forward as a leader, to influence. It's you have some advice for, like, if you had some advice for new leaders, emerging leaders, or even existing leaders out there who've had these beliefs, but I can do it better, I can do it on my own, or what advice would you give to leaders out there?
Leadership, like I said, is a way that you influence, and leadership is really knowing who you are for yourself, right? And being willing to embrace all parts of you. So knowing yourself so deeply that you know what is your values and like what you're sticking true to. Let me repeat that. So knowing who you are at the core and really being like gung-ho about who you are at the core. So like just being really in love with yourself to the point where you're like, that's a non-negotiable for me. I'm not willing to cross that line. And I think if everyone is leading from who they are at the core, then we can lead people. So leadership is about being able to lead yourself first. Once you can lead yourself first, then you can lead a team, right? Because it takes great knowing and awareness of yourself to know like what are some of the blind spots or some of the things that can get you tripped up in order for you to be able to lead your team. So if you're coming from a belief that I can do this better myself, then you're going to have this level of control, this level of manipulation. It may trickle down in the form of micromanagement, things like that, right? So it's like really being true to who you are, knowing what your triggers are, being so aware that you can see it and then be able to shift as need be. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It's getting to know yourself, and I would also add to that, like, it's you got to be willing to, you got to know that you're going to change over time too.
Yeah.
And knowing yourself is also being open to change.
Mm-hmm.
In who you are today, you're going to be different tomorrow. So, and that ultimately helps you influence, right?
Yeah, it really does. I love that part that you said that it's evolving, and that's something that we didn't talk about too. Like just like the evolution is as you get to be more like sold on yourself or fall more in love with yourself over time, you realize that some things change, right? And be willing to lean into that as well too. Like that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we switch gears for a second and just
Yeah.
dive a little more into who Stephanie Stoddart is? So I do this with every podcast. I send folks some questions a little more personal, right? So that we get a little more insight into who you are. Some folks like to start off their podcast doing that. I like to reverse it.
Yeah.
Make sure we understand the professional side of you. Then we get into some of the fun things right now, right? So one of the questions I sent you was crazy or true fact about Stephanie, and I'll let you share what that fact is, but it has something to do with second child, car, highway.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, my second child, he called me out, and I think that was so beautiful. So just into it ties it up so beautifully because it's really about the truth of who you are and like knowing to the core. So backstory, my first child, he was breech. I had a C-section. Second child, I was like, no, I'm doing this naturally. There's no way I'm not having another surgery. Right. And I knew at the core that that's what was going to happen. Like I could just tell. So on the day of delivery, my husband and I were heading to the hospital and I felt him. And I was like, we're having this baby now. My husband was like, no, we don't have. I was like, yeah, we are. So I had him in the car. I had this baby in the car. I had enough awareness to know he was coming, which was awesome. 2, I called 911. I was the most calm ever. Like it was literally so surreal. And 3, when we had him, my husband, he had noticed that the cord was wrapped around his neck 3 times. So my husband had to unwind that for him. So because of that experience, I know I am more powerful than ever. I believe so truly like what I'm meant to do is to help others in this world. And the forms that it's happening in is in different ways. So 1, being a mom, 2, being a wife, 3, being a dentist, and 4, being a coach or a consultant to my fellow dental professionals. So it's evolving. And parts of me, I used to just identify with dentists, right? But it's also important to note that your titles, they're great, right? But who you are at the core is loving, or who I am at the core is loving, kind, energetic, crazy, powerful, and bold.
Why crazy?
Because I am. I guess my word of crazy is passionate. Like if I am sold on something, I am 1,000% crazy. Yeah, crazy. Yeah. Like, more like a maniac. So yeah, that's perfect.
Maniac, okay. Maniac's better, right?
Yeah.
I would say I told someone one time, it's like, I can get obsessed with it. They're like, it's not obsessed, David. It's passionate. I'm like, that's just a nicer word for like a little bit crazy, right?
Yeah, crazy, maniac, obsessed, passionate. Like, yeah. So I'm passionate and bold. So yeah.
Passionate and bold. How do you help other people identify? So like, here's a good question actually, and it's somewhat personal too. Like, you obviously put some thought and you've had a lot of time to think to be able to say, hey, this is who Stephanie is, not just a dentist. You're a little bit crazy with things. You're bold. You're a mom, you're a parent. How can you help how can other people help themselves figure that out? Who are they? Who are they really? Is you said something very important there. A lot of folks, especially when you don't have other things going on in your life, I am my job. Mm-hmm. And a lot of folks in my circle, unfortunately, there was a lot of layoffs and such, and a lot of folks, had a good thinking about things. During COVID, a lot of people had a good thinking about things like, who am I? Am I really about my job? But, how do people find out who they really are?
That's a loaded question, my friend.
Yeah.
I know
I ask a lot of loaded questions here where there is no right answer.
There is no right answer. So that's the thing. There is no right answer, right? So who you are is changing every single day, right? But I think I know what helped me a lot is just being willing to be still. And I think for so many of us, it's hard for us to just sit and do nothing, right? You're buffering, and buffering just means that you're replacing so for me, when I was busy, it was like the addiction to work in. And when I was still, it was like, oh, what is that? Like I hear a noise in my head, right? So it's like you replacing the work to mask the time that you get to spend with yourself, right?
Yeah.
So when you create that space, and it could just mean 5 minutes a day. I mean, let's start with 5 minutes. Everyone has 5 minutes. So the thought that I have no time, that's not true. You can choose to make 5 minutes for yourself just to sit and be. No music, no telephone, no computer, just sit and just see what comes up, and have a pen and paper and just write what's coming up for you. So it's about just being still for me, and then seeing what comes up, and also being willing to try different things. So like I said, I'm not just a mom. I'm not just all the other things. Sometimes I think this is the path that I should go, and then I get some information like, oh, actually, I don't enjoy it, and being okay with that. Like, I think sometimes we think that we're caged into or jobs or certain situations for a given period of time, and that's not true. You can always change, and it's even more profound and beautiful when you can make that change earlier if you find that it's not a great fit, because it means that you're protecting and loving yourself the way that you want to be treated. So yeah.
Yes, stillness is so important. I was going to say stillness is the key. I think that was a book, Ryan Holiday. Is that right?
I think so. I could write it down. I could go Google it.
Yeah, but nevertheless, it's stillness. I think when we say stillness, there's like images of like people floating on a lily pad and transcending to another dimension, and I don't think it needs to be that. And I used to be one of those folks who are thinking like, it's all this woo-woo stuff. But I think what I realize is that, just grounding myself is being still doesn't have to mean you're sitting in some lotus position with hands in some position. It's just taking those moments where you challenge yourself not to do anything else but listen to quiet, and it's an exercise on its own, and it's amazing what comes up. And I think that's why a lot of people don't want to do it. The stuff that comes up because of the stillness, the things that you're scared of, the thoughts that you're talking about, the questioning about yourself, that could pop up. But I think there's a lot of benefit to just investigating what those thoughts are. But I find stillness, you get those aha moments in those moments of stillness too. And it could be just 30 seconds sometimes. I'm on a walk, and it's the aha moment that I couldn't have thought about in front of a screen or doing work, keeping busy. So stillness is so important. Huh?
Same here. I mean, it's so funny, and we run away from it, and it's what our body craves. We run
away from it. Yeah, we run away from stillness.
And that's what our body craves.
Yeah.
And I think, even during the pandemic, like you could see the effects. So you're like, oh my gosh, wow. It was like all the stuff that came up, like things that have been like settled down that actually came up to the surface. And because of it too, like we've had so many like advancements, and that's really cool because we had time to like think about it. And just like the realization that life is now, and it's so precious. So we got that challenge to really define what it means to actually live for ourselves.
Well, I think the pandemic was a good experiment in that it's almost like artificial stillness. Like you're initially trapped in your house with people supposedly love you and you love, but unfortunately, I had friends and people in my network where it didn't work out so well. I think they realized after so many years, like, oh, we were just roommates, and travel and work was a distraction, putting off a lot of those problems. And it's unfortunate, but those moments of stillness, when you don't run away from it, it can hopefully, like for these folks I know, like hopefully emerges into something much better for them.
Yeah.
because they faced it. So,
Yeah.
a couple more questions for you. What's the advice you would give to 20-year-old or teenage Stephanie, knowing what you know now?
Ooh, that's a good one. How old am I?
I'm
old enough.
I need to edit out the age. I'm like, that's just terrible, Dave. It's like, what advice would you give your younger self?
Stop and smell the roses. I think a huge part of my life, just given that condition that I had, which was more, my life was going by, and I've accomplished some great things, of course, but the moments that I could have been still, I wasn't still or present for those, and I'll never get those back. So really just stop and enjoy the moments that are coming up. It may seem like an inconvenience, right? Like your kid is bothering you to go look at this toy or whatever, and you're like, but I need to send this email off. And I'm like, okay, but he's trying to connect with you. And like, in such, that age level, they're so impressionable. So it's like, wow, am I repeating that pattern for them for the future, where it's like work is more of a priority than nourishing that kid in that moment, right? Yeah. And just be willing to fail more. I think I always got 100. I have a friend and I would compete.
Sucks
We're like
you.
99. I know, right? We're like 99, 100, 99, 100, 99, 100. And even had a professor told me in college, like, if you have a 95% for your grade, you do not need to take the exam. P.S. Stephanie, you don't need the exam, right? So it's almost like that level where it was just like,
all you underachievers at 94, please stand in line.
Right? So just be okay with failing more. Like, it frees you up to so much more, right? And it's not so constrained. So like, have fun, enjoy the ride, and don't get so caught up in the grade, right? It's meant to be lived. And that's what I found out over the last couple of years, clearly.
Okay, excellent. So Stephanie, I always leave the last question of the podcast to my guest. So you can ask any question you want. Ask me any question you want.
Oh, I can ask you any question that I want.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh la la.
Yeah, I've been asking you a lot of questions. So I'm like, all right, give it to me.
Perfect. What would you tell your 20-year-old self, Dave?
First of all, you're an idiot. Let's get that out of the way, right? You're a lazy bum. So okay, get the critique out of the way. I think what I would tell my 20-year-old self is that you're going to learn a lot of lessons along the way, and many still to come. But at the same time, you, as much despair or whatever emotions you're going to go through in those trials, and it's going to be dark in those trials, you are capable. You will emerge on the other side because you have the mental fortitude. You have the people around you. You're very resourceful, and so it's going to be okay. So no matter how dark it seems, you're going to be okay. That's what I would tell him, because he was an idiot and he made a lot of mistakes. That's what I would tell my 20-year-old self. You see how harsh I am with my 20-year-old self?
Yeah. It's okay. We're not judging the words that you use. At least you got it out. I think a lot of times when we keep it in and we keep it in, that's when we create more harm,
Yeah. I know you want to drill into that one, but we'll do that off camera. Yeah, we're not doing that one on camera.
I'm not going to do that. You didn't see that? I was like, wait.
You're not going to psychoanalyze me.
I'm not.
I came close to that in one of the podcasts where one of the folks like, okay, Dave, I want you to do this test before our podcast, and then I'm going to give me the results, and we're going to talk about you and some of your personality. I'm like, oh crap! It's like, this is not going to end well. All right, Stephanie.
That was so much fun. I
Uh,
haven't laughed so much in a podcast in a very long time. So thank you so much for that.
no problem. So here's where, and I don't know if this is just a belief. I try to end these podcasts around the 45 minute mark. Folks have said, hey, podcasts, they should be shorter and such. And I personally, I disagree. I think it is a forum for long form and for us people to, if you want to listen, you can listen. If you want to just click off right now, just
it's fine.
do what you want, right? I don't really care, right? I'm not doing this for clicks and likes. But at the same time, having a good laugh, meeting someone you never knew. And that's one of the joys of doing this. So I'm glad we shared the space today.
So am I. Thank you so much for having me here today. This has been such a treat.
Yeah. And I guess where can people find you? If
Good
they're looking
old
for you.
LinkedIn, Stoddart DMD. Yeah.
Okay. We'll add all that information to the show notes about your coaching practice and your LinkedIn and everything. And folks, if you need some coaching, leadership coaching, if you're a dental practitioner or a healthcare practitioner or a working mom, Stephanie's your person to go to. All right. All right, Stephanie.
Thank you
Have
so
a good
much
day.
for having me here. You too. Thank you so much. Bye.